All the great sages transformed Brihaspati into a calf, and making the senses into a pot, they milked all kinds of Vedic knowledge to purify words, mind, and hearing. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.18.14. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Brihaspati is a priest of the Vedic heavenly planets. Vedic knowledge was received in logical order by the great sages through Brihaspati for the benefit of human society, not only on this planet but throughout the universe. In other words, the Vedic knowledge is considered one of the necessities for human society. If human society remains satisfied simply by taking rains from the planet Earth as well as other necessities for maintaining the body, society will not be sufficiently prosperous. Humanity must have food for the mind and ear as well as for the purpose of vibration. As far as transcendental vibrations are concerned, the essence of all Vedic knowledge is the Mahamantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In Kali Yuga, if this Vedic Mahamantra is chanted regularly and heard regularly by the devotional process of Shravanam Kirtanam, it will purify all societies and thus humanity will be happy both materially and spiritually. Kritva vatsam suragana krindram somam aduduham hiranmayena patrena viryam oj balam payaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. All the demigods made Indra, the king of heaven, into a calf, and from the earth they milked the beverage soma, which is nectar. Thus they became very powerful in mental speculation and bodily and sensual strength. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Jai. In this verse, the word soma means nectar. Soma is a kind of beverage made in the heavenly planets, from the moon to the kingdoms of the demigods in the various higher planetary systems. By drinking this soma beverage, the demigods become more powerful mentally and increase their sensual power and bodily strength. The words Iranmayena Patrina indicate that this soma beverage is not an ordinary intoxicating liquor. The demigods would not touch any kind of liquor, nor is soma a kind of drug. It is a different kind of beverage available in the heavenly planets. Soma is far different from the liquors made for demoniac people, as explained in the next verse. Deity Dhanava Vatsam Prahladam Asurarshabam Vidyadutam Duduham Kshiram Ayaha Patre Surasavam. Translation by Srimad Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada. The sons of Deity and the demons transformed Prahlada Maharaja, who was born in an Asura family, into a calf, and they extracted various kinds of liquor and beer, which they put into a pot made of iron. The demons also, purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, the demons also have their own types of beverages in the form of liquors and beers, just as the demigods use somarasa for their drinking purposes. The demons born of Deity take great pleasure in drinking wine and beer. Even today, people of demoniac nature are very much addicted to liquor and beer. The name of Prahlada Maharaja is very significant in this connection because Prahlada Maharaja was born in a family of demons as the son of Hiranyakashipu. By his mercy, the demons were and still are able to have the drinks in the form of wine and beer. The word ayaha of iron is very significant, whereas the nectarian soma was put in a golden pot. The liquors and beers were put on an iron pot. Because the liquor and beer are inferior, they are placed in iron pot, and because somarasa is superior, it is placed in a golden pot. Gandharvapsaraso duksham patre padmamaye payaha vatsam vishva vasum krutva gandharvam madhusaubhagam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada. In the inhabitants of Gandharvaloka and Apsaraloka made Viswavasu into a calf, and they drew the milk into a lotus flower pot. The milk took the shape of sweet musical art and beauty. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.18.18 Vatsena pitaro aryamna kavyam kshiram adukshata atmapatre mahabhagaha shraddaya shraddha devataha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The unfortunate inhabitants of Pitraloka who preside over the funeral ceremonies made Aryama into a calf. With great faith they milked kavya, food offered to ancestors, into an unbaked earthen pot. The Bhagavad Gita, it is 9.25, it is said, Pitranyantri Pitruvrataha, those who are interested in family welfare are called Pitruvrataha. There is a planet called Pitraloka, and the predominant deity of that planet is called Aryama. He is somewhat of a demigod, and by satisfying him one can help ghostly family members develop a gross body. Those who are very sinful and attached to their family, house, village or country, do not receive a gross body made of material elements, but remain in a subtle body composed of mind, ego and intelligence. Those who live in such subtle bodies are called ghosts. This ghostly position is very painful because a ghost has intelligent mind and ego and wants to enjoy material life, but because he does not have a gross material body, he can only create disturbances for want of material satisfaction. It is the duty of family members, especially the son, to offer oblations to the demigod Aryama or to Lord Vishnu. From time immemorial in India, the son of a dead man goes to Gaya and at Vishnu temple there offers oblations for the benefit of his ghostly father. It is not that everyone's father becomes a ghost, but the oblations of Pinda are offered to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu, so that if a family member happens to become a ghost, he will be favored with a gross body. However, if one is habituated to taking the prasada of Lord Vishnu, there is no chance of his becoming a ghost or anything lower than a human being. In Vedic civilization, there is a performance called Shraddha, by which food is offered with faith and devotion. If one offers oblations with faith and devotion, either to the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu or to his representative in Pitraloka, Aryama, one's forefathers will attain material bodies to enjoy whatever material enjoyment is due to them. In other words, they do not have to become ghosts. Text number 19. Prakalpya vatsam kapilam siddhaha sankalpanamayim siddhim nabasi vidyam cha necha vidyadaradayah. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. After this, the inhabitants of Siddhaloka as well as the inhabitants of Vidyadharaloka transformed the great sage Kapila into a calf, and making the whole sky into a pot, they milked out specific yogic mystic powers, beginning with anima. Indeed, the inhabitants of Vidyadharaloka acquired the art of flying in the sky. The inhabitants of both Siddhaloka and Vidyadharaloka are naturally endowed with mystic yogic powers by which they not only can fly in outer space without a vehicle, but can also fly from one planet to another simply by exerting their will. Just as fish can swim within water, the residents of Vidyadharaloka can swim in the ocean of air. As far as the inhabitants of Siddhaloka are concerned, they are endowed with all mystic powers. The yogis in this planet practice the eightfold yogic mysticism, namely Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana and Samadhi. By regularly practicing the yogic processes one after another, the yogis attain various perfections. They can become smaller than the smallest, heavier than the heaviest, etc. They can even manufacture a planet, get whatever they like, and control whatever man they want. All the residents of Uddhaloka are naturally endowed with these mystic yogic powers. It is certainly a very wonderful thing if we see a person on this planet flying in the sky without a vehicle. But in Vidyadharaloka, such flying is as commonplace as a bird's flying in the sky. Similarly, in Vidyadharaloka, all the inhabitants are great yogis, perfect in mystic powers. The name of Kapila Muni is significant in this verse because he was the ex-founder of the Siddhanta philosophical system, and his father Kardama Muni was a great yogi and mystic. Indeed, Kardama Muni prepared a great airplane which was large as a small town and had various gardens, palatial buildings, servants and maidservants with all this paraphernalia. Kapila Deva's mother Devahuti and his father Kardama Muni travelled all over the universes and visited different planets. Anechamaino mayam antardhanabhutatmanam mayam prakalpya vatsam te duduhur dharanamayim. Translation and purpose during this Bhaktan Song. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Others also, the inhabitants of planets known as Kimpurusha Loka, made the demand Maya into a calf, and they milked out mystic powers by which one can disappear immediately from another's vision and appear again in different form. It is said that the inhabitants of Kimpurusha can perform many wonderful mystic demonstration. In other words, they can exhibit as many wonderful things as one can imagine. The inhabitants of this planet can do whatever they like or whatever they imagine. Such powers are also mystic powers. The possession of such mystic powers is called Ishita. The demons generally learn such mystic powers by the practice of yoga. In the Dashamaskanda, 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a vivid description of how the demons appear before Krishna in various wonderful forms. For instance, Bakasura appeared before Krishna and his coward boyfriends as a gigantic crane while present on this planet. Lord Krishna had to fight with many demons who could exhibit the wonderful mystic powers of Kimpurusha Loka. Although the inhabitants of Kimpurusha Loka are naturally endowed with such powers, one can attain these powers on this planet by performing different yogic practices. Srimad Bhagavatam 4.18.21 Yaksharaksham bhutani prishachaha pisitasanaha bhutesha vatsa duduhu kapale kshatajāsavam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Then the Yakshas, Rakshasas, ghosts and witches who are habituated to eating flesh transformed Lord Shiva's incarnation Rudra, Bhutanatha, into a calf and milked out beverages made of blood and put them in a pot made of skulls. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. There are some types of living entities in the form of human beings whose living conditions and eatables are most abominable. Generally, they eat flesh and fermented blood, which is mentioned in this verse as Kshatajāsavam. The leaders of such degraded men known as Yakshas, Rakshasas, Bhutas and Prishachas are all in the mode of ignorance. They have been placed under the control of Rudra. Rudra is the incarnation of Lord Shiva and is in charge of the mode of ignorance in material nature. Another name of Lord Shiva is Bhutanatha, meaning master of ghosts. Rudra was born from between Brahma's eyes when Brahma was very angry at the four Kumaras. Text number 22. Tatahayo dada sukaha sarpanagascha takshaka vidaya vatsam duduhur bilapatre visampayah. Thereafter cobras and snakes without hoods, large snakes, scorpions and many other poisonous animals took poison out of the planet Earth as their milk and kept this poison in their snake holes. They made a calf out of Takshaka. Within this material world there are various types of living entities, and the different types of reptiles and scorpions mentioned in this verse are also provided with their sustenance by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The point is that everyone is taking his eatables from the planet Earth according to one's association with the material qualities. One develops a certain type of character, payaha, panam, bhujanganam. If one feeds a serpent milk, the snake will simply increase its venom. However, if one supplies milk to a talented sage or saint, the sage will develop further brain tissues by which he can contemplate higher spiritual life. Thus, the Lord is supplying everyone food, but according to the living entities associated with the modes of material nature, the living entity develops his specific character. Pashavo yavasam kshiram vatsam krutva च गोवृषम् aranyapatre chadukshan mrigendrena च damstrinaha kravyadaha praninaha kravyam duduhu sve kalevare suparna vatsa vihagas charam cha charameva cha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The four-legged animals like the cows made a calf out of the bull who carries Lord Shiva and made a milking pot out of the forest. The four-legged animals like the cows made a calf out of the bull who carries Lord Shiva and made a milking pot out of the forest. Thus they got fresh green grasses to eat. Ferocious animals like tigers transformed a lion into a calf, and thus they were able to get fresh flesh for milk. The birds made a calf out of Garuda and took milk from planet Earth in the form of moving insects and non-moving planets and grasses. There are many carnivorous birds descended from Garuda, the winged carrier of Lord Vishnu. Indeed, there is a particular type of bird that is very fond of eating monkeys, and eagles are fond of eating goats. Of course, many birds eat only fruits and berries. Therefore, the words charam referring to moving animals and acharam referring to grasses, fruits and vegetables are mentioned in this verse. वतवत्स वनस्पत्यः पृथक् रसमयं पयः गिरयो हिमवद्वत्सा नानाधातून् सानुषु. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The trees made a calf out of the banyan tree, and thus they derived milk in the form of bani deriecious juices. The mountains transformed the Himalayas into a calf, and they milked a variety of minerals into a pot made of the peaks of hills. Sarve swamukya vatsena sve sve patre pratak payah sarva kama dugam prithvim duduhu prutu bhavitam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The planet Earth supplied everyone his respective food during the time of King Prithu. The earth was fully under the control of the king. Thus, all the inhabitants of the earth could get their food supply by creating various types of cows and putting their particular types of milk in various pots. This is evidence that the Lord supplies a food to everyone, as confirmed in the Vedas. Eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman. Although the Lord is one, He is supplying all necessities to everyone through the medium of planet Earth. There are different varieties of living entities on different planets, and they all derive their eatables from their planets in different forms. On the basis of these descriptions, how can one assume that there is no living entity on the moon? Every moon is earthly. Being composed of the 5 elements, every planet produces different types of food according to the needs of its residents According to the Vedic Shastras, it is not true that the moon does not produce food or that no living entity is living there. एवं पृथ्वी आदयः पृथिवीमन्नधाः स्वन्नम् आत्मनः दोहवत्सादिभेदेन क्षीरभेदं कुरुद्वः. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. My dear Vidura, chief of the crows, in this way King Prithu and all the others who subsist on food created different types of cows and milked out their respective eatables. Thus they received their various foodstuffs which were symbolized as milk. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.